Hey everyone, welcome back to Bros and Shows. I'm your host, Josiah, aka Mauler67, and with me, as always, I got my buddy, I got my pal, I got my brother Austin. Austin, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How about you and everyone that's watching on Twitch?
I can't really complain. Just work and then life at this current juncture, as they say. So pretty okay with myself. So
yeah,
I finally updated all the Spotify after.
Yeah. My buddy Joel will be super excited. He has been listening ever since we started, and he was like, wait, you guys are like a lot more episodes than I am. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I can't listen to him on Wednesdays. So he's like, I listen to him when I go to work. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I didn't know that. And he's like, yeah. So I'll tell him. I'll be like, hey,
So basically, I put a little like explanation at the beginning of the podcast that I started. Oh wait, hold up. But I just had them all saved on my computer. And I was like, oh, I haven't been editing these. Oh, I haven't been uploading these. I'll get to it. And I just kept saying that the whole time, like, as long as we're still putting out the episodes, I'm saving them. It's not that big of a deal, right? I don't think anyone listens to us on the Spotify or whatnot. And then you're like, hey, people been asking. I was like, crap, I don't ever look at that stuff.
Yeah, I had like 3 people ask me why. They're like, hey, like, why don't you load to Spotify anymore? I was like, I don't know. And then they asked if I was going to load the video to Spotify, because supposedly Spotify does video podcasts now.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, they just started that. Honestly, I could if I wanted to, because I have them all saved. What do I freaking care?
Yeah.
The only reason why I know that is because I think it was Markiplier and his friends, Wade and Bob. Geesh, why could I not remember the simple name? That they started doing theirs that way too. So yeah, I could totally do that if I wanted to. Key term
if I wanted to. I have the power now. Execute Order 66.
Execute Order 66. That's exactly what the power. Actually, it's mainly the fact that I'm like, I don't want to edit anything. That's the biggest give and take. Is like, do I want to edit things? I don't know if I really want to edit things, but then at the same time, I'm like, there's benefits to editing.
Yeah.
And mainly all I do is just edit the intro and exit onto them. But what can you do?
Yeah.
Austin, I don't know how the heck to go into this, honestly, so let's just...
Well, speaking of the name...
Jump into it.
Speaking of the name that he couldn't remember, Bob is someone we're talking about this week.
No, it's Robert.
No, he calls himself Bob, too. Robert.
No one calls him Bob.
Yeah, like multiple
times.
Only
those naysayers call him Bob. And those crazy people. So
we're talking about the Jinx HBO 6-episode documentary called Jinx, The Life and Death of Robert Durst. So this is actually this is the first time we've ever done like a real documentary, like murder drama type deal at all.
Yeah, this is the first time us doing a documentary to begin with.
Yeah.
Not that I'm like against it or anything like that. Just it's one of those situations that we've never done it. Yeah, I just it's nothing bad. It's just it's one of those things that you have to. All we can do here is talk about the general thing of it. Maybe even like how they frame stuff and all that stuff. But most of it comes down to the whole story. So Austin, what made you watch this? Like, how'd you find this?
So about around the same time that this episode came out, I was fascinated like at that time with a lot of like, murder documentaries. And I remember watching my first murder documentary, which is an HBO special called The Paradise Lost. And it's about 3 Memphis boys that get accused of these murders, and it becomes like a 3-part series where there's like 10 episodes each, but each part is like 5 years apart. So like these kids get convicted of the, like these kids go to court for the crime, then they get convicted, and then they go through jail, and then they try to repeal and say that they didn't do it. And then the last season is them getting free out of jail because they find out that DNA evidence finally like catches up with like how crimes are solved, that they are cleared of the crime. But a lot of other crazy stuff with it. So when I watched it, I was like, wow, this was really good. I really want to start watching Murder Docs. So I was like, I want to see what else, people have to offer. So I was driving to a movie theater with my buddy Wayne, and Wayne and me were talking. I told him about Paradise Lost, and he's like, yeah, I've heard about that. Like, is it good? And I was like, yeah, it's long, but it's really good. And Metallica actually did like a song about the three that were accused, because the only reason that those kids were accused was because they profiled those kids because they had Metallica t-shirts on, and they said that they looked satanic, like in the 90s. So Metallica like put out a song.
Oh, like, I've heard of these actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember. Okay, yeah, I've heard about this.
Yeah. So then, what happened is Wayne was like, "Have you watched the Jinx?" And I was like, "The Jinx?" He's like, "Dude, I just got done watching that." And I was like, "Huh?" And then he starts explaining a little bit of like Robert Durst's family, and like he's connected to these 3 murders, and we don't know like exactly, like he's like, it's something that's really awkward, because he's like, I've watched like a lot of murder docs, but I've never seen a murder doc like this. And I was like, really? He's like, okay. So that night when I got back from seeing, I think it was Star Wars like Force Awakens with him, it was like, I got some time. Like, I'm not gonna be to bed until like 3 a.m. because at that time I was working like swing shift. So I sat up, and before you know it was 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, oh man, like those were, I was like, man, I really enjoyed that documentary. After that, I was very fascinated by Robert Durst, that I started doing a bunch of research on him, like trying to figure out stuff. So like this story like led me into like loving documentaries about like true crime and stuff like that. So I'm kind of hooked kind of now, because I watch like murder docs every like once in a while. Like I'll see something pop up. Like the newest one that just came out on Netflix I watched was called the Murdoch Murders, the Southern Scandal, which was like a 3-episode hour each, and it is crazy. And it just baffles me to see how crazy people are willing to go, or like what they've done to like try to cover up everything. And it's just one of those interesting things. It's not like I believe in like the crazy conspiracy theories. It's more of like these people are proving that these people are covering up things, or they're showing like, hey, there's something wrong here. And then like the murder doc scene like went dead for a while, but then there was that Netflix show, How to Make a Murderer, in that.
Yeah, like, I heard of that one. Yeah,
which they were just in the news like this week because of defamation and stuff of the documentary. But that one was huge. Like it brought in like a lot of viewers, so other people started making murder docs. So like they are rampant now, which is, kind of interesting. But yeah, so that's how I learned about the Jinx, Robert Durst, and it became one of my favorite documentaries, like series wise. I've been wanting to do this series for a while now, actually. You guys probably don't know this from Josiah's channel, but like the thing is I had a nerd page for a while, and I did a show called Lackluster Reviews, where we would like watch a movie. Well, we would 2 of us would have watched the movie, or one of us have watched the movie, and then we'd show the other people the trailer and make them try to describe the story. And I was, I really wanted to do the Jinx so bad, but I couldn't do it. It was the right format. So when this came up, I was like, man, that's something I probably have to put in. It is a little rough because it is real life. Like this really happened. And sometimes some people can't take that. They're just like, whoa. But I just wanted to like stir the pot a little bit this week and be like, you know what, let's try it out. If it's something that's worth it, maybe we look into it more. Cause like, I'm interested in interesting stories and things that make my mind go, how did that happen that way? And this was one of those docs that got me into that kind of stuff. So yeah. So that being said, what was your impression about Robert Durst and the Jinx?
Oh, okay. I'll be honest. Whenever I watched the first episode of this, I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be a rough watch." Just because, like, when they were just showing off all the body parts and everything, I was like,
Yeah.
I get it's a documentary, but like, oh man, come on, man. I don't want this to be the whole movie or show or whatever. It's just like the gores or whatnot. I tend to like it more whenever it's like not mockument. I do like mockumentaries, but not like, you know what I'm saying, like scripted.
Yeah, like kind of
scenes or
scripted in
whatever.
a way
Yeah,
where it's not like that. Yeah, because like I said last week, like before this, I said, hey, you know, there is some real life violence in this. I was like, they do show body parts a couple times, but don't be too hesitant about it because it's not really about that. It's more of like the person that is being involved in this whole thing, and that's why I was kind of like skeptical that you were going to say something like that. I was like, yeah, I better, you know, just remind viewers that this is real and they do show some graphic things, and you know, but yeah, so go on.
So basically, yeah, the first episode was kind of rough for me a little bit, and then they kind of like did like a weird. My biggest complaint about this series, and I'll just say it now, is I feel like it jumps all over the place sometimes.
It does.
And I feel like I'm like, narratively, I understand why they're doing it, but sometimes I am confused if we're talking about past, post, or present. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what's going on here. But luckily enough, after the first episode, they kind of chill on the whole like bloody dismemberment and everything, and just became more of like documentary about the process of looking into Robert Durst. And the one thing I will say, I find it interesting that this show did a, you know, normally whenever I watch a documentary, it is very much a chronological of events. This one did like, here's the events. You know why that's weird? It's because of this. Now let's redo those events, but with this new added information that you just acquired. Oh, now with that, let's jump to the future. It's like, why are you doing this to me, buddy? Stop throwing me all over the place. Because like they did at first where it's like, oh, here's all this stuff, and then he's like, he got arrested, and he's like, 250,000. I don't have that on me. And it's like, why would he say such a weird thing? Surprise, he's the child of a super rich person in New York, because of course the serial killer is a freaking rich kid who's just upset that he lost his family job, essentially.
Or like whatever his family's fortune.
And I'm just like, man, I just don't know how I feel whenever things like that are the revelations. Like, yeah, this person's weird and bad because he didn't get what he wanted, and he had his inheritance kind of ripped from him, and that made him a little unhinged. And it's like, people freaking died because this kid just didn't get it. Like, it's messed up. But yeah, like, the storytelling was fine, other than the weird pacing of jumping back and forth, which sometimes worked really well. Other times I'm just like, wait, I'm confused. Or is this pre or post Mr. Black's death? Like, that was most of it, my time through. Other than that, I thought it was pretty solid. I do like documentaries. I tend, like I said, I like it more whenever there is some form of reenactment or whatever in it. That's why I have the tendency of watching.
Messed up is just an understatement.
That
is
you're
correct.
Right. I just when you're facing with such a thing like that, you can't really process it very well. So
a couple things I was gonna say about this is so for instance, Jenny, I think her name's Gina Perino, I think that's her name. She was one of the girls that was wearing pink. I think she was in a pink dress, or a pink like dress weird suit thing. She actually is a Fox News analyst now, She got what she wanted. Like, she was the one that blew up the story about Robert Durst's wife going missing like the second time, and that's when he like fled.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, and he decided to be Walter White for a minute.
Yeah.
And what's weird is like he tries to steal a hoagie, which you can kind of tell that he wants to be caught or something. Like it's weird. But the cool thing about this documentary that doesn't do a lot of other murder docs, most of the time when you talk to the killer in a doc, they're in prison. They're in prison. This guy reached out to this director that made a movie that was like his idea of like what happened to Kathleen Durst. And this guy reached out and was like, oh no, that's not how it happened. Like, can I be on an interview that I've never done interviews for? And we talk about what really happened. And it's interesting to me that when you see Robert Durst for the first time and how he talks, and how he blinks his eyes and how he like looks away, and then he says certain things that you just like cock your head and you're like, wait, did he just say that? Yeah. I just think Robert Durst is a man of evil. You can kind of tell like in his like stature and like how he presents himself that he's not all good up there, you know. He's kind of messed up in the head. And that's what interested me in this doc was like this murderer that you can clearly tell is a murderer in my book, but you have to have hard evidence, of course, to like acquit, you know, make that happen.
Oh my goodness, I cannot tell you how mad I was watching this whenever the first jury acquits him, and I'm like, you're kidding me, right? Well, people are like, it's not about whether or not he dismembered the body, it's whether or not he killed it in non-self-defense. And since we have no proof that it is self-defense, that it's not self-defense, nor do we have proof that it is self-defense other than his own words, we have to go with it. Let's also disregard the whole fact that no one has ever seen them together, and no one can corroborate his story as them being friends. So, you know, we just have to listen. I'll be honest. A side of me believes that courtroom was, like, rigged. Because, like, the Durst family was... had lots of money. They obviously had no issue throwing a bunch of money at, like, his legal defense and everything of that sort.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, they 100% were paying that thing off. And nothing screamed in my head more that it was kind of like a paid thing than whenever they were explaining that the only person who held off was a Christian lady who said that he dismembered the body. And there's like, it's not about it, the body's gone, it's whether or not he killed him in cold blood. It's like, yes, it's that, but you also have to look at the facts of like, is his character a good character? Like that's the thing. Like a lot of times in like I watch a lot of lawyer YouTubes and everything, like Legal Eagle and whatnot.
Oh, I love Eagle.
And the one thing they always say in those things is like, half the battle of a courtroom is you convincing that your character is your client is trustworthy. And they point out in the show whenever he makes the trial laugh, like the people laugh, that I'm like, that doesn't seem right to me. Like, even like the joke that was said there was not funny at all. Those people, it felt wrong to me. Like, it legitly felt off. And then whenever they were showing up on TV and explain why they were like voting for certain things, none of them really had compelling reasons why to vote for him or to acquit him. And they obviously brought up the whole point about like, oh, he dismembered the body, but no one ever, that wasn't a conversational point. I'm like, this just seems very off and very weird.
Oh yeah.
And it made me frustrated. It made me very frustrated.
Oh yeah. And the thing is with that too is like, you know, I had to describe this to you know, Mama Burkhart. Like, she was like, I don't get this. I was like, what happened was the guy pled self-defense, and the people that were the plaintiff plotted the murder and said this is a murder, but they didn't disprove the self-defense, so the jury went that way. But I'm also with you in the boat that Robert Durst could have paid off those jurors, and the reason why
I don't even think it was Robert Durst. I think it was his brother Bob Durst, or whatever his name is.
Well, Seymour was his dad. Andrew.
I guess it was. I guess it would be Seymour at that time. Like his dad was still alive.
Yeah, he was still alive.
Because the thing that makes me believe that even more is whenever you find out that they have private investigator. They hired a private investigator to look in all this stuff, and when the private investigator basically said, like, there's basically just evidence that shows that he did it. Yeah. They cut ties with him and they said, nope, we're done. And they probably took the evidence that he got, which he had like the contradictory information statement. They probably took that then and then rationalized it for his defense.
Yeah.
That's exactly what they did. They 100% were doing it to keep the Durst estate going, which worked because freaking Durst is still around, apparently in New York City, and it makes me hate capitalism so much more whenever knowing that like the rich can just do crap like that.
Well,
it makes me even more upset that like the rich people can do that. Okay, sure, yeah, but they won't even like the whole like Austin. I'll be honest here. If you murdered someone and I found out you murdered someone, I'm sorry, I would still take you to the police because you murdered someone. I don't care. Like, you're my brother. I love you, but I'm not going to defend you and pay like a defendant to defend you for that murder type deal thing.
Well, but me and you have the same thinking though with that, because like here's the thing. I think this way. If you murdered someone and you're my brother, I look at it this way. He could murder me or he could murder someone else. And I was like, or it could have hurt more people that I love. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. He murdered someone. Now, if it was like, I shot him in self-defense, or if it was like he accidentally died and they showed that it was an accidental death and you were part of it, like I could see that, but like, I'm still going to turn you in, be like, hey, the right thing to do here, bud, is like, go and turn yourself in. Yep. That's what the moral human person should do, is turn themselves in if they have convicted a crime of murder. But the reason why I brought this up about like being paid off as jury is, it's famous. There's a famous, courtroom thing about paid off juries. And that was is when Al Capone went to be tried for tax evasion, he switched out the jury and he paid the jury. Then what happened was the feds found out about it, and at the last moment when Al Capone sat down, they switched out the jury, and that's when Al Capone knew that he was caught. And then he admitted to tax evasion and a bunch of other stuff. But the thing is like, it's interesting to see like how these people do know what Robert's capable of, because his brother hires his own bodyguard after Robert Durst says he's going to kill him. What does that mean to me? That means my brother will do it. Like, I know my brother can do it.
The issue that I had in that situation, why I thought it was a stag jury to begin with, was the fact that all these things that he did, all that stuff came up, and they still thought, it could have been self-defense. He drove all the way to his brother's house with 2 loaded guns. He was probably just going to stand his ground in his car. Like, it's legitly that's okay. Here's the thing, right? When they said that it was going to be Texas that was going to prosecute him for that, I instantly went like, he's getting out. He's getting free, because of the fact that they chose Texas, where they're just like, freaking gun laws, and we don't care you murder someone. Woohoo! They wouldn't went anywhere else. Like, I think it would have been harder for them to get a case. I think they would have had a lot easier time convincing, like, getting the court to like fight over it type deal thing. Also, can I just be honest on one thing though?
Yeah.
The big like twist at the end of the documentary where they find like the note that matches
the cadaver mouth.
Yeah. You know how stupid that is to me?
Why?
Okay, you have these
I just
people,
want to know your reason.
Yeah, you have these people who are supposed to investigate, right? They're supposed to look into this. They're supposed to look all these documents. They did not look through. And then I think it's like her son or something like that finds all this stuff. And he's like, oh my gosh, look what I found. Condemning evidence. And it's like, did they even try? Or did someone on the case, mess with it?
There was a little money bribery going on there. That's what I feel. But this person was also
that like Jerry Pierogi girl or whatever her name was.
That's the girl from Fox
DA.
News.
Yeah, she's an idiot.
Yeah, she's a complete numbskull.
When she's like started talking about the ideas, like I gotta go after him, and then they turn her into the villain. I was like, yeah, like okay, it's dumb idea. This is another reason why I thought it was Kangaroo Court, and I'm going to be saying this the whole time. The fact that the jury would allow them to flip the argument from this guy's a murderer to she's mean and that's why he ran. It's like, that's not the conversation here. He dismembered a body and he admitted to it.
And he was on the run, dressed up as a woman.
Yeah.
With a different name.
Not
that's
even
criminal too.
Not even like on the run, dressed up as... He fled from the cops on all this stuff. It's like, it's so stupid.
He
like
paid bail, left.
Who,
yeah, see, there was a lot of...
I like half of the thing as I was watching it, I'm like, this is going to end with him. It's going to end two ways. And I was calling it from the game. Like, it's either one, he was never convicted and he lived his life out. Or two, at the end, they're going to find something. They're going to get him. It's going to be long overdue. And they're like, ooh, but we got him. We did good. Honestly, I love the fact in the end where they were talking about Robert. He's like, this guy's smart. He'll know this or that. And then when I'm watching him, I'm like, he's not smart. He just has money. That's all he has. Yep. Like when he started to explain whenever they first showed him the cadaver note and he's like, yeah, misspelled Beverly and big block letters, obviously was trying to think. I'm just like, what's weird is how you're just naming this stuff off the top of your head like it's what you thought when you were doing it.
He also says it in the documentary. He was like, yeah, it's like block letters, like someone trying to hide their own signature or their own writing. And like, okay, so how much did you ever research like past what happened here?
I quickly searched his name to see like, oh, did he get convicted or was this all just a sham thing? Mm-hmm. He was getting prosecuted and he died last year. He got convicted of Susan Bateman's murder or whatever. Susan. Yeah, the second one. Yeah, she was convicted. They convicted him using what the documentary found. He also. He came into a police station and when they arrested him about it, they said, hey, we have evidence now that you killed Susie. And he was, or Kathy Bates or whatever her name was, Kathy, whatever. And he's like, okay, so what's in it for me? And like, I was like, what the heck? Like, why would you say something like that? But then you're like, oh, that's why he's trying to get like a deal out of this if he can get out of jail or whatever. Yeah. Well, honest opinion, he was 70 some years old. Yeah, he was 78 when he died. He couldn't care. He didn't care at all. Like, I'll be honest. Once he went out to do the what's it called, the interview or whatever like that, my brain's like, he's accepted. He's like, I lived my life. I got nothing. I spent a couple years in the prison. What does that matter? I've already spent like a year or so in it. I'm good. Blah 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 blah. That's 100% what I viewed. And I'm like, he wanted to be immortalized in a documentary and he got what he wanted. I don't think at all anything didn't go the way he wanted to, because unfortunately he's freaking rich and he can do whatever he wants. Yep. But I do I did look up afterwards that all the families of the deceased people that he killed are suing the Durst estate. Yep. For all the wrongful stuff. So I'm like, okay, that's some good thing. Eat the rich, as they say on the TikTok, Twitter
or
world,
on the dress of AOC,
or the dress of AOC, yeah.
But
All
no,
that good
yeah,
stuff.
yeah. That's the thing about this story is it's interesting to see how this unfolds, but also it's scary. Like it's terrifying. Like someone got away with murder, and after that cadaver note, I was 100% convinced that Robert Durst murdered every single person, and they did something really well. I think Kathy Durst is dead, and I believe that her body's in some woods somewhere because of Susan. I think Susan, or whatever her name is, like the writer that he kills, that they get the cadaver note on.
Yeah.
I really think that because she was a mobster's like daughter, she knew where to hide a body.
Well, yeah,
and that's why he killed her, because he knew that she was going to blackmail him, because she was like, oh well,
well,
I know
they basically said that at one point, like that was the whole thought process, because it's like she was part of like mafia people, and she knew how they disposed of bodies at some point. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if she found or knew where he hid her body, and that's what she was doing. And then, like they said, she fell on hard times, and she probably kept trying to get more and more money out of him, and then finally he just popped her and left.
Yeah.
Man, it's I don't know, man. I was so freaking frustrated. I'm not even lying, man. Like, it was just so frustrating. Anytime he was on camera or talking or whatnot, the whole time my brain was just going like, this guy is obviously the murderer.
And so when they went to bring up like his the documentary stuff in court, Robert Durst admitted that he said he was doing meth most of the time. And he was like high, and it explains why his eyes were the way they were, because I kind of feel like when I watched this for the first time, I was like, Robert Durst has some evil in him because of how he looks and how he talks, and his eyes show it. And then you come to find out, well, he's high on meth too, and you're like, well, that makes sense.
That makes sense, I guess.
And the weird thing is like his lawyer actually tries to stop him one time, like at the first interview. He's like, hey, do not talk, your mic is still on. Like your hot mic's still on. And he's like, oh, okay. When a lawyer says that, that means a lawyer knows something about Robert Durst, like being Robert Durst. And it's just so interesting that like this guy like was like, no, I'm gonna explain what I believe that happened. And in reality, I really think it's not a lot of people think that he killed those 3 people. In which I believe that, and 100% believe that. But I also think he killed a 4th person. And it's in the doc that does happen, but they don't rule it a certain thing. And I think that was his first taste of murder. I really think he killed his mom, because his mom commits suicide, like jumps off the roof, he says. There's like too much evidence there that doesn't show like a clear story of her being like psychotic or like wanting to kill herself.
Yeah.
And I think that he was like mad at her or something, just threw her off the roof when he was like, I think it was like 8 or 10. And he probably just did it.
I think he was 6.
Something like that. Or his dad or someone did it. Because like, I think, because they even said they didn't rule it as a suicide. It's like, she jumped off the roof. Like, something fishy is going on there too. So I think that like someone else is murdering people too.
I don't know. I think it could be anything. Honestly, I could see it. The issue is that he was like a really small kid, so I could see that not being the truth. You know what I thought is maybe like the Durst family is actually in line with the mafia too, and maybe the mom was
makes sense,
like a warning to them, saying like, hey, watch your mom die, essentially. Because that makes sense, because the whole was like, look at mommy, doesn't make sense. Like, that doesn't make sense to have like your a dad say like, look at mommy. But it would make sense if the dad was holding his son and a mafia member had her up on the roof, and the other mafia member that the kid didn't know about was behind him with a gun, telling him to like, watch your wife die. This is what happens when you betray us, or whatever. Like, That seems like something straight out of a movie, but like that's how you get a point across, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah,
So,
kind of.
and then like I don't know. I don't know. That's just like a lot of like, ooh. Yeah, no, I just. It's a weird. This is a weird thing to talk about because the actual storytelling of this documentary was fine. Like I said, it was a little jamble. I think the parts that got me the most is whenever they were following him around New York City and he was essentially harassing his brother. That did make me laugh because it was like super petty Queen stuff, you know. But it's just like, I'm gonna stand out in front of his home, get some picture of me in front of my brother's home, since now that I know it's his. And he's like, I don't think he's gonna be happy unless someone comes out and like removes him from here.
Yeah.
It was so funny to me.
I have to give also props to Andrew Jarecki, the director and the writer of this doc. He has some balls on him. Like that guy, like literally was like, yeah, I'll totally interview this guy. By the way, I'm gonna turn all this evidence in. And like after he turned that evidence in, I would be like, hire a bunch of Secret Service or bodyguards because like Robert Durst.
Honestly, I thought even before that, whenever he started like saying like, "Oh, I don't want to come do it," like I can't do it this week, next week. I thought I'm like, he knows something up. Like someone blabbed to him, and he knows the truth, and he's aware of them. I actually thought that when he went into the thing, there was going to be like cops who bust in the room the second that he admits to like writing that note or whatever. And I thought one of the things they were going to say is that like they found a loaded gun in his bag. I thought that's what it was going to be, is that like they found out he knew something was up, and so he like came prepared to kill them all. And whenever he said, I have to go to the restroom, and he walks in the restroom, my brain instantly went like, all right, there's two ways this is going. This I looked up the aftermath after watching it, and it's like his mic is still hot here. And first off, I thought it was absolutely hilarious that exactly what happened earlier in the film. Again, that's what happens when older criminals don't understand technology very well.
Better call Saul.
Better call Saul, aka freaking cameras.
Yeah, Saul Goodman and the internet took him down.
But on top of that, like I thought I was going to hear like a gun cock and then a bang, and then he commits suicide in the bathroom.
Oh no, that's exactly what I thought.
That's why I thought it was going to happen. And then he's just like, I freaking killed them all. And I'm just like, freaking talking to yourself. And I know, like in the court of law, you could easily say like I was just recanting in my head what they were going to say I did. And honestly, it could pass. Like people would be like, yeah, no, I've done that before. Wherever I'm like in a heated situation where I think to myself, I'm like talking in the first person or like responding to myself and be like, I probably thought I was crazy. Like, oh, what did you do? Like, oh, I killed them. Like that's what they expect from me, you know, type deal thing. But man, I just.
Well, also too is like with his when he was being convicted for the murder of that woman, he actually stated that he lied multiple times during his trial in Texas on the stand, and he also said that they're like, so if you lied right now on this court case, would you tell us the truth? And he goes, no, why would I? And it's like, oh, bad answer. And then later he actually says that he wrote the cadaver note, and people are like, oh, well, we kind of already knew that, but thanks for confirming, buddy.
Yeah, well, I saw the point where they said like his lawyers recanted or contradict their statement, saying that yes, he did write the cadaver note. And I was like, I'm legitimately just over here shaking my head this whole time. It literally feels like the police department's botched this investigation. And obviously got paid off. And so I think because of how badly it was botched, how little they looked into things and all that stuff, I feel like there was something happening behind the scenes to make sure certain information was not given to light. it makes me actually want to research the other people who found the information in film or whatever and see what's going on in their life. Did they magically die or disappear, or like you know, like it's like one of those like rabbit hole conspiracy theories. It's like, wait, did the son of the one woman die after this? Like, did he magically like get in a car accident somehow and pass away?
The one of the Durst that actually was, I think he was like his nephew.
Yeah, his nephew
was the one that was telling him. Is something wrong with him? Is he in jail?
Does he suddenly really need money and
yeah,
doing things? Has the Durst family recently sold all their belongings? Like all this stuff, man. It's just like anytime I watch a true crime documentary like this, Austin, I instantly enter this realm of like, it's all rigged. It doesn't matter. Money buys everything, and America's going down the drill because the people who are rich are psychopaths who are murdering everyone and paying them all. That's the thing. I'll tell you who was happy with everything that happened. The state, because they got all the money in the form of like $250,000 free for bail. Like they're like, oh sweet, we'll just keep doing this over the years.
Oh man. Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like when I wanted to make you watch this documentary, it was something that like I love documentaries, period. So like,
yeah, I do too.
I was like, you know what?
I like historical documentaries. Murder docs are not my thing. I'll be honest.
That's why like this is the only murder doc that I would ever make you watch, anyways. Okay. I don't think I would do Paradise Lost or like How to Make a Murderer. Like those things. Like nothing against those things, but the reason why I chose the Jinx though for this is because it's a 6 episodes.
Yeah, no. When you said 6 episodes, I was happy. Because after 45 minutes of one episode, I was like,
it drains you. Because I watched How to Make a Murderer is 13 episodes and they're an hour long. And there's 2 seasons of that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to know more. And then like, in my opinion, How to Make a Murderer season 2 was like a filler pretty much, where it didn't go anywhere. It was just like, oh, hey, you know, like we have this big time lawyer that actually is going to know it pro bono. And she's like got people off of being innocent. And I was like, great. And the whole time they're like, we're trying to explain how he didn't die. Like how she didn't die and he didn't kill her. And I was like, oh gosh. But there was only like 2 documentaries that I thought, well, maybe Josiah or, you know, you would even like that would be murder docs. So like the Jinx was one of those. And then there's one called The Staircase, which actually was made into an HBO like drama show.
That sounds like an episode of Junji Ito.
The Staircase. It didn't go up to the stairs, but no. That's
when
why
you fall up the stairs, you permanently fall up the. Oh wait, no. Have you ever seen those YouTube videos, the PC, like 129s or whatever like that? It's this guy on YouTube who will come up with his own like lore videos and he'll animate them, and they're like story little creepypastas, and then at the end he'll like explain the scientific like what's happening type deal thing. And one of them I remember watching, it's a staircase where as they walk up, it's an infinite staircase that they suddenly grow old and they can't help but keep going, and then they die of old age. And that's what my brain went to when the staircase, after you're like, oh, it devours you. I was like, no, it turns you old.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, documentaries, man. Like, whew. I'm much more like, I like the Netflix samurai documentary and the pirate one. Like that's more my pace, where they explain like a culture or war or a world or something like that. Like in the hindsight of that stuff, like. That's more my pace.
No.
True crime podcasts, the only issue I have with them is that a lot of the times you hear like people's perspective and their thoughts and feelings, and that's very easily manipulated.
Yes.
By the director. Mm-hmm. To where you're like, oh, this person is obviously anti this person or this person. But whenever it's like a documentary on a era or a piece that no one's part of, it's much more like scientific or like historical context only. They only talk about that stuff, and that's why I prefer more, because then you don't have all these emotions and feelings getting in the way of being like freaking samurai at the end.
So if you like the historical documentaries, do you know who Ken Burns is?
Who's Ken Burns?
Okay. Oh my gosh, you're killing me. So Ken Burns is like one of the biggest like historical documentaries guy of all time. He does a lot of PBS documentaries.
Oh, okay.
He's done like Civil War, Vietnam. Oh, well, no, he
Mm.
didn't do Vietnam. That was Michael C. Scott Hall. He did like Prohibition. There's just a whole bunch of Ken Burns done. Ken Burns has been recognized as like one of the best historical directors of all time. If you ever get a chance, you should totally like watch anything that Ken Burns does. He's just really good at what he does as a historical documentary. But I totally understand with the crime doc though, that you're getting perspectives from people and you're also getting edits to make a story more juicier. And the thing is that's what I feel about How to Make a Murder is that way. Paradise Lost, on the other hand, is totally different because it's looking at like both sides of the story. Like, you know, what if these kids really did do it? What if they didn't do it? Well, there's evidence showing that there's no evidence here. You know, like
there's evidence showing that there is no evidence. Surprise!
The Jinx is a pretty cut and dry documentary where it's like, this guy is Robert Durst. He's got a lot of money. He's, you know, like accused of murdering 3 people.
Yeah.
You know, and he actually murdered someone and he dismembered the body. And I'm like,
yep.
Well, that should have just put him away right away. Like, you know, that's like a red flag for me. Wait, so he dismembered the body? What's his excuse? Well, he was afraid. Afraid of what? If you accidentally kill someone, call the police and say, I accidentally killed someone. But you're on the run because you fled, and it's just, oh my gosh, it's interesting. I just like how interesting this story was. Even though I feel so bad for the families that Robert Durst has affected, and I hope that their family does get like some type of settlement because they'll never get those loved ones back. And those people really cared for Robert Durst, you know, except for Lewis Black, supposedly. But, or Mr. Yeah. But the thing is like, it's sad because this guy finally got convicted and then he died 2 weeks later. You know, like there was no justice there, in my opinion. Like there was justice that they did find out that he did write the cadaver note and all that, but that's sad.
Not justice.
It's not justice at all. And I feel sad for that. So.
Yeah, I just 100% like the guy got away with it. If the person is able to murder someone and live an additional like 20 to 30 years, they got away with it, and that really sucks. Like, you know, I think of like the woman who lied about, what's his name? Tubman? Harriet Tubman, I think. I can't remember. It's the one with the woman who like claimed like a black little kid attacked her or raped her.
Oh, Emmett Till.
Yeah, Emmett Till. Thank you, Emmett. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Harriet Tubman. Who the heck is that then?
Harriet Tubman is Civil War era.
Oh, okay.
Harriet Tubman, Underground Railroad.
I'm very bad with like names.
No, I get it. Emmett Till.
Emmett Till. Like the woman was like what 90 some years old and she admits to it and then she dies, and it's like that freaking sucks.
Yeah.
It frustrates me greatly. And that's what this documentary did to me. It did frustrate me greatly because seeing him old, like in a suit and everything of that sort, I'm like, they're either like doing a giant debate by having him dress up nicely so he can do these interviews, or he actually got away with it. And it's basically, oh no, he totally got away with it, man. Completely on technicality.
Note to self, maybe one of the shows I was going to pick, I'm not going to pick anymore.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, it's a murder it's a show that actually, well, it's a show about murder. Do you know who David Fincher is? He's the guy that directed Fight Club, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo.
Okay, well, I know Fight Club, but that's it.
Yeah, so that director did a show on Netflix called Mindhunter, and it's about it's a book that's written by the CIA and the FBI director that actually coined the phrase serial killer. And he made a documentary where they interview, like, you know, John Wayne Gacy, what was it? I was gonna say Marilyn Manson, but it's Charles Manson, and a couple other ones. So like, it was a good doc, but then it's a good show, but then they canceled it after season 2 because David Fincher's like, I wasn't getting paid enough. Like, and people loved the show a lot. They were like outraged that they canceled it. Netflix also uses an algorithm, so they're like, yeah, it's not getting what we want. It's like, yeah, but Emmett Till is part of one of the episodes because they brought up Emmett Till. But like, then I started researching, like, supposedly, you know, all this is like true stuff, but there is a drama and a play and a little bit there. There's like a side story. But the thing is like, I looked up a lot of these like killers, like these people that were murdered, and their cases are cold. And in most stories, you know, it's, you know, 60, you know, in the 60s when, like, you know, racism was at, you know, that high, you know, civil rights was coming around, and it was just a lot of these people were getting murdered because of the color of their skin, and then never got solved. And like, this irks me because I love this doc. I don't get me wrong, I do love the doc. It's very interesting, but it irks me that Robert Durst murdered 3 people and didn't get any like, the family never got justice. And it's just interesting that, like, as a society we fail to do something like that. And he could have been convicted in Texas. That could have stopped it. But you know, it just money.
I don't trust Texas law.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like, any state that has the whole like stand your ground system, it's like people abuse that. Like, honest, like, this is my honest opinion, right? That's
no, I'm saying I'm from a state that says stand your ground.
But like the whole concept of it, it's supposed to be like, hey, if someone invades you and like threatens you, you know, you have the right to do this. Mm-hmm. But people will freaking commit murder and then proclaim that they were feeling threatened to avoid prosecution. And it's so frustrating because it's like, you did what you did. Mm-hmm. You feel it's your right, and you're willing to say anything to make sure that you get it. And what's worse is that you have groups like the NRA and place like that who will lobby and give you money to have you like I forget what I was watching where someone shot someone and killed them, and they got a call from the NRA and they were given a list of things to say at the court hearing that would make it be waived off as defense, personal defense. And one of the things is like, I felt threatened, and they were within my domain, and it's like, boom, self-defense. Doesn't matter about anything else. You just say those 3 things, whether or not they're true or not, and we don't care. You're good. Freaking Robert Durst, have a good day. Go kill someone else. That jury should be prosecuted. Like,
yeah.
This documentary, like, here's the thing. One of the reasons why I don't like true crime stuff is 80% of the time it's a failing judicial system that makes me angry. He shouldn't have been gotten away with the first one. He shouldn't have gotten out of that.
Now for that, there is some hilarious things that the judicial system does get wrong that I think is hilarious that they make into a movie that's hilarious, which is there's a movie with Vin Diesel with hair. Vin Diesel grew his hair out for this scene, for this movie. It's called, and it has Peter Dinklage in it. I forgot Peter Dinklage was in this
Elf. Yeah.
It's called Find Me Guilty. It's have you ever heard of the RICO Act? It's where RICO Act means that you can file against a group of people or a group or an assembly that they are trying to conspire fraud, conspiracy, or embezzlement. And so the RICO Act is what that is, and how they get this movie that Vin Diesel did is about him being Jackie. I forget what his real name is, like Giovanni or whatever it is. He's a gangster from New York, and his whole family is getting RICO Act. Like, I'm talking, like, I think it was like one of the biggest like court cases in America. It was like over 300 people were indicted at the same time in the same courtroom, which is very interesting if you guys haven't watched it. But it's a goofy story because Jackie actually does not use a lawyer, and in real life he doesn't use a lawyer, and he defends himself, and this guy's an imbecile. And guess what? Jackie stops the RICO. Like it's weird. But the judicial system does fail a lot.
He stopped it because he paid off the jury.
A laughing jury
works.
is not a hanging jury. That's the quote from that movie. But interesting stuff. This was only the murder doc I'm ever gonna do probably on this show.
I'm going. Okay, I hold the right to make you watch a documentary for whatever the heck I want to watch. Some weird trash.
No, seriously. Like
no. When I make you watch a really stupid thing, I'm going to come in and be like, so Austin, do you like this better than the Robert Durst one? I will do that to you.
Oh man,
I will purposely look up like freaking Takosha Khan, the true story documentary, a 7-hour long video essay, and be like, we're watching this, buddy. This is what you opened the door for. No, couldn't just have TV shows or anything. You had to do documentaries.
Just had to do one murder doc. No, this is probably the only murder doc I'll ever do. And probably the only documentary that I'm really going to do probably. I do watch a lot of documentaries and they can be boring, like, so I don't expect people to be like, I'm going to watch this.
The one thing I'll say about documentaries is I enjoy listening to them. Mm-hmm. You know, I enjoy internet documentaries more than actual full-on documentaries. I found out recently. You've heard of the Internet Historian, right? Like everyone's heard of the Internet Historian.
Yeah.
Like his videos, I find very entertaining and very informative most of the time. Sometimes they're kind of like, "What? Why are we talking about freaking this?" And it's like, hey, instead we're going to talk about the cave collapse that happened and the one guy got stuck. Hour-long documentary that he made for fun, and it's got me on my seat just paying attention. Like, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. I'm with you. Like, Oversimplified is my favorite channel on YouTube, where he pretty much explains a historical event, but he uses cartoon animation and he's goofy with it, and then also like what's that other Salmonella Academy, and then what was the other one? Oh, there's a guy on this Armchair Historian. Armchair Historian is amazing, and History Buff is one of my favorite channels because he takes movies that are supposed to be historically accurate and he breaks them down and tells you this information's wrong, this is what they got right, this is drama, this isn't. Oh, by the way, did you know this person was actually an alcoholic? And you're like, wow, and
you're like, wow, that was unneeded information.
So like our dad was, when we actually dropped you off one time, and it was me and him, I was taking him back to the house, like we were coming home, and I put on History Buff, and it was like Untouchables, which is the story of Elliot Ness and like the people that were part of the brigade of like Prohibition agents. And Elliot Ness, when Prohibition came, was finally done with, when it struck midnight, Elliot Ness looked at his men and says, "All right, let's drink, boys." And you come to find out Elliot Ness was actually a drunk the whole time, and he was just doing his job. He was still indulging in the alcohol. So yeah, it was fun. I'm probably never gonna do a murder doc again on here, which I totally agree. Sometimes this was the only one that when I wanted you to watch just to see how you would react to it. In reality, I didn't want to do it just because I was like, wow, this is so great, Josiah's gonna love it. No, it was more of, I'd like to see your reaction to things, just to be like, I just want to pick your brain and see how far I can pick it until you're like, all right, I'm done here, we're done. So
yeah. Yep, that makes sense. That basically makes sense. It was a fine documentary. Well done, well put together. Not my cup of tea, but hey, that's how it works. Well, Austin, I think that basically covers it. Is there anything else you want to say, or are you good?
No, I'm good.
You're good. All right, he totally did. It was obvious from the get-go. Those people failed. But Austin, next week we get to talk about a show that is, I don't know, infected our lives, I guess. Brought us to the breaking point. Made me not want to eat bread for a couple weeks. We're going to talk about The Last of Us next week.
Yeah.
Right.
Sony
That ended,
PlayStation's. Right? Yeah, it just ended the last
Just
Sunday.
confirming, because I was like, yeah, we're going to do it.
Which is weird, because usually like you don't end a series on just like an odd number. There are only 9 episodes, which is, you know, I don't know why they just didn't do 10, but I totally kind of understand.
They didn't have the money for Pedro.
They're just like, whatever, Pedro, get out of here.
Pedro
you know.
costs too much, and he's been like sitting on the last couple episodes, so it's like, paying him all that money to sit in bed, like, dang.
Good for him though. Good for
yeah.
Pedro
he's
Pascal.
living the life. He's living the life.
He's a good dude. Like that guy.
I enjoy the
love him.
I watched
him.
Did you watch the Hot Ones that he was on?
I just got done watching that like 2 days ago, and I loved every minute of it.
Anytime I watch like video compilations of him just acting and being himself and like joking around, they're so enjoyable. It's like he'd just be a really fun guy to interact with.
If you liked Hot Ones, did you watch Snack Wars with him?
Nope.
Okay, it's with Jon Favreau. Do you know who Jon Favreau is?
Isn't that the guy from Marvel?
Yeah, Mandalorian. Like he made the Mandalorian.
Well,
you know him. Yeah, he was Tony Stark's butler.
Yeah, that's the main guy who writes all those movies.
Yeah. But I always remember him as the guy from Friends that wanted to be the Ultimate Fighter champion.
That, and also, wasn't he also in... No.
He was also in The Longest Yard.
He was in something else, but I can't... Was it Rudy?
Yeah, he was. He was Rudy's best friend.
Yeah, he was his kind of a jerkbag
like, could you kind of, get me a girl?
Yeah.
You can talk to girls?
I remember him from that, because I just remember that being...
There's an episode where it's like American versus United States, and they do like snacks. And this one was US versus Chile, because Pedro is from Chile. So yeah, it's interesting. If you haven't got to watch it, you should totally watch it if you love Pedro Pascal. But yeah, next week we're gonna watch that with Bella Ramsey, and then there's like a lot of other people that show up in this show. You know, and I think we were watching it for a while. Like you were watching it with me.
Oh yeah, I was because you were so concerned about spoilers with it that I decided to pick it up and run with it and whatnot. And then it got to the point where I'm like, okay, I get the gist of everything that's going on and everything that's happening. So I like stopped on an episode, and I'm like, oh, I'll wait a couple episodes. And luckily enough, there hasn't been really any spoilers thrown out that I've seen. I did watch a TikTok today where the person was trying to say like Joe was not wrong for doing this or whatever that. And I'm like, okay, obviously he does something in the end, but it was very ambiguous how the person was saying it, and I assume he did that on purpose. And so I'm like, okay, yeah. I assumed it was going to... I think I already told you my thought process on what it's going to... Which we'll save for next week.
Yeah.
We don't got to do that now, because next week we are doing The Last of Us. And then from there, we'll figure out what the heck we're watching. Because I don't know what the heck is up after that point. I could be wrong, I could be right. Austin, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Bros and Shows.
Yeah.
I appreciate you as always. And thank you all so much for stopping by. I appreciate you guys too. And thank you all so much. Tune in.